My Mother, the Eldest Daughter-in-Law by Frances Chow. Storyworth abridged the story of my mother and chose this as its 2024 Mother's Day special podcast. The podcast will be included in this section of the webpage. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. Proverbs chapter 31, verses 11 to 12. My mother's maiden life. My mother, Kit Jing Chow, Zhou Jing, was born in Qiuguan, China in 1922. Her name, Kit, Git in Chinese means clean, and Jing means chaste. Taken together, the two words mean pure and chaste. My mother was the fourth child in her family. She had 3 older brothers, 2 younger brothers, and 1 younger sister. I do not know much about her childhood. I just know that with the outbreak of the Second World War, my mother did not finish her teacher training at Qiuguan Teachers Training College. Therefore, she stayed in her hometown and assisted her father in their family business. My maternal grandfather had 3 stores selling dry seafood and high-end herbal medicines. My mother was one of the store's accountants. She was not only skillful in doing calculations with an abacus, but she also wrote with beautiful Chinese calligraphy. A traditional Chinese wedding. My parents were married in 1946 in Guangzhou, China. The matchmaker was a close relative whose husband was a judge. A reliable and reputable matchmaker was thought to be one of the key elements that would guarantee a happy marriage. Chinese at that time also believed the compatibility of the bride and the groom's family would lead to a harmonious marriage. So, wooden door to wooden door, and bamboo door to bamboo door, 竹門對竹門, 木門對木門, has always been desirable. Besides family compatibility, the reason my father chose my mother as his wife was because he believed my mother could manage the complex and conflicting relationships that existed in his own and extended polygamous family. My parents dated 3 or 4 times before their wedding. They had a traditional Chinese wedding. During the ceremony, my mother wore a traditional red coat and long red skirt, hongquan dai kwa, with embroidered silver and gold dragons and phoenixes. She had a phoenix coronet on her head, feng gun ha pei, and a red veil covering her face. To show their respect to the elderly, the couple kowtowed to all the elders in the extended family. My maternal grandparents gave a maid to my mother as part of the dowry, pui ga nga wan. This maid was supposed to take care of my mother and her newly formed family. My mother sent the maid home after a few months because there was enough domestic help in the Kwok family. The eldest daughter-in-law of an extended polygamous family. Being the eldest daughter-in-law, Zhengsik, of a wealthy family, and with 2 mothers-in-law who were at odds, it's not an enviable role to play. My father knew foremost his wife had to be a woman of good character, who would respect and have a good relationship with various family members. My father also realized his wife had to be educated and be presentable on formal occasions, and at the same time be skillful in cooking and doing various housework. 出得廳堂，入得廚房, to fit into the Kwok family. My mother proved that she not only met but exceeded all these criteria. My parents, like many Chinese at that time, fled to Hong Kong just before the communists took over China. They left many things in China, including their wedding pictures. The communist government occupied their ancestral houses for almost 40 years. Shortly after they settled down in Hong Kong, my parents and my lawful grandmother formed a separate household. Life was a little bit easier for my mother because she did not have to relate all the time with so many members of the extended family. I remember my mother telling me that when she first got married, my father's youngest half-brother was only 2 years old, and she helped to take care of him. She also taught my father's younger half-siblings reading and writing. At that time, it was the custom that the husband's younger siblings regarded the eldest sister-in-law as their mother, 整手懂某. Observing various Chinese festivals and family occasions was also a means of showing respect to the family elderlies. Shortly after she was married, my mother wrote a poem on Chinese New Year to congratulate my grandparents. My grandfather was so pleased and proud of her that he shared the poem with relatives and friends in his business world. Even after my parents had formed their separate household, my mother would go back to my grandfather's house to kowtow and perform a tea ceremony on the first day of the Chinese New Year, at my grandparents' birthdays, weddings of younger half-siblings, and other important occasions. Those were not casual visits. She would cook hard-boiled eggs in sweet broth with dry lotus seeds and dry meat from a fruit called dragon eyes. My mother carried them in a big thermos to grandfather's house. Upon arrival, my mother changed into her formal black coat and red skirt, embroidered with dragons and phoenixes. Then she performed the tea ceremony and kowtowed. We children kowtowed too. Because my mother had to bring the big thermos, her change of clothing, Chinese pastries, candied fruit trays in a tray, 好林熏合, and fresh fruits along, our maid always accompanied us during these trips. My mother had other responsibilities as well. She was often asked to write all the birthday and wedding invitations because she wrote with beautiful Chinese calligraphy. Those occasions were held in banquet halls with hundreds of guests. My mother prepared nice clothing for all of us to suit the occasion. She also sent Chinese pastries and fruits to the elders of the extended family at various festivals. The most important and unspoken expectation was for my mother, the eldest daughter-in-law, to be a model to all the younger females of the Kwok extended family. My mother and her children. My parents had 7 children, but their firstborn, a male baby, died at birth while they were still in Guangzhou. My mother had a premature delivery because she had to kowtow and congratulate all the elders at one of our close relatives' wedding, even though she was in the last stage of pregnancy. My parents grieved very much about this incident. In Chinese culture, having a male baby has always been regarded as an extremely important responsibility, as well as an honor for a Chinese woman. This was especially true because my father was the eldest and only son of the lawful wife, Dik Zhengqi, and my deceased brother would be the eldest grandson, Dik Sun. This baby would have been my eldest brother. To my grandparents' dismay, my parents had 3 daughters in less than 4 years. I was their second child and the oldest daughter. My mother knew she had to continue to give birth until she could produce a male child. My parents had 3 girls, then finally 3 boys. These children were all born in Hong Kong. Giving birth to 7 children and taking care of 6 live children must have taken a toll on my mother's health. Her hair began to thin out and her vision began to deteriorate as early as in her 40s. Although my grandmother and a maid helped to take care of us and the housework, there were very few modern conveniences in those days in Hong Kong. Water had to be boiled, the stove had to be fanned, meat and vegetables had to be picked up daily from the market, vegetables and meat were preserved on the rooftop, and so on. What was most worrisome was that kids always got sick. My mother often commented that we visited the medical office weekly. We all had measles and chickenpox. We were truly fortunate that we had a washing machine by the end of the 1950s. My mother sewed with a Singer sewing machine, and by the mid-1960s, she baked cake with a mini tabletop oven. But the contribution of all these modern conveniences was insignificant when compared to the amount of work that was required to take care of a 9-person household. We were always dressed very nicely. My mother had a friend who was a professional tailor in sewing children's clothing. She made formal dresses with matching bows and purses for us girls when there were banquets to attend. My mother learned to sew from her and made clothes for us, including our school uniforms. She knitted sweaters and vests for us too. At my kindergarten graduation school play, my teacher borrowed our dresses so other classmates had presentable clothes to wear. My father often walked us to school. When my father could not make it, my mother would take my father's place. It was funny to watch as my schoolmates mistakenly thought my mother was one of the teachers and started bowing to her, or other mothers asking my mother questions about the school or their children. The image of my mother wearing a white lace eyelet cheongsam, aka qipao, in my schoolyard is still imprinted in my mind. I felt so proud of my mother at that time. I have already mentioned in another story that my father was my first teacher, but my mother was our teacher too. She made sure her children were well versed in classical Chinese literature. She had us ahead of the school's curriculum. When I was in 6th grade, she taught me Cao Yunming's I am homeward bound, Tou Yunming Zok De Guai Hui Loi Hai, and Han Yu's An Elegy for the 12th Nephew, Han Yu Zok De Zai Sub Yi Long Wan. She also encouraged us to read our school magazine repeatedly because students' exemplary essays were published there. She always wanted us to be good writers. I was fortunate my parents poured so much love and attention on me. Even though my mother had lost vision in both eyes in her later years, she still asked my father to read classical Chinese literature to her. Classical Chinese literature remained her lifelong love. My mother was the one who was affected most when my 5th brother, Chiu Yi, started to have grand mal seizures around a year and a half old. He had a seizure every 4 hours. When this happened, my mother put a metal spoon inside his mouth to keep him from biting his tongue. Our home was, therefore, always in a state of emergency. Later, we also found he had a severe intellectual disability. My parents spent all their savings on him, taking him to see various herbal and Western medical doctors. They bought the most expensive and exotic herbal medicine for him. For example, a snake's gallbladder and a horse's kidney stones. Chiu did not walk until after he had measles, around 4 years of age. My parents carried him to doctor's appointments. Sometimes I went with them, carrying his diaper bag because there were no disposable diapers available at that time. My parents for a while believed that brain surgery would cure Chiu's intellectual disability. I remember how disappointed my parents were when a brain surgeon told my parents that no surgery could cure Chiu. Even at my tender age, I knew it was like a thunderbolt striking my parents. The greatest difficulty was taking care of Chiu's daily needs. When I left Hong Kong in 1973, he was 15 years old. He could not recognize us, he could not speak a word, or take care of his own toileting needs. He was oblivious to danger and what was happening around him. All he could do was to feed himself. Imagine how difficult it was for my mother, who was his primary caretaker. My mother never gave up hope on Chiu. She was very advanced in thinking. She begged different social agencies to give Chiu an intelligence test. She wanted to enroll him in a school. Unfortunately, Chiu had never been administered an intelligence test, nor had he been enrolled in any school. That was one of the reasons why I went back to school to get a professional school psychology degree in my early 40s. For me, it is not just a job to earn a decent salary, but a means to fulfill my parents' wish. Of course, I had a sincere desire to help families with disabled children. My parents on and off let go of the maid after we became teenagers, so you can imagine how busy my mother was. My father was fortunate to have such a capable and all-rounded woman as his wife. The two women who loved my father. My grandmother at that time was getting old too. She died a year after I left Hong Kong. As I look back, my mother always respected, got along well, and took care of my grandmother until she was hospitalized shortly before her death. Though my grandmother was illiterate, she was an excellent cook and a good tailor. To this day, I still remember the smell and flavor of the food that she prepared for us. I used to watch with awe how my grandmother made silk or cotton-padded jackets for us. Having two excellent homemakers under one roof and both longing for the love of the same man must be a difficult situation for my grandmother and mother to be in. However, I had never heard them criticizing each other, nor did my grandmother scold my mother. My mother, my model. My parents did not accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior and Lord until they were in their 70s. So, when we were growing up, our parents never took us to church and we never had any family devotions. However, I thank God for them. I know they were more exemplary than a lot of so-called Christian leaders. Mrs. Evelyn Shi, Dick Yin, wife of Reverend Tory Shi, C.K. Sung Muk Si, once said a minister's wife has to be like the eldest daughter-in-law of a big family. She has to be steadfast in caring, loving, serving, and above all, being a model to others. I was still in my late 20s when I became a minister's wife. Often I did not know how to relate to different age or language groups or how to serve. During those times, I always considered what my mother did for our extended family. I strive to be like her. I'm so thankful that God has given me a mother who is a model eldest daughter-in-law of a big family. My mother went home to be with the Lord on January 28, 2006 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I will always remember my mother as the model eldest daughter-in-law of our extended family as I emulate her to be the loving, caring, and serving minister's wife of my church family.